Hello, welcome to Revenant Reads. I'm Vin, and today for Poetry Thursday, we're going to look at one of the short little poems in Struwwelpeter by Heinrich Hoffmann. So this was originally published as a children's book in 1845 by the German psychiatrist Heinrich Hoffmann, who had originally created this as a Christmas present to his son. And then he was convinced by others to actually publish it for the public at large. And it was very, very popular. It's very whimsical. This was Struwwelpeter, I think roughly translates sometimes to like shock-headed Peter. But it was originally called something like, silly drawings and rhymes, something like to that effect. So this is meant to be very playful, although it comes off as very moralistic. It's basically misbehaving children getting their comeuppance. But there's really a whole sense of fun about it. And I don't think it was entirely meant to be or was read at the time as being entirely moralistic. I think most people got the sense of humor. And you can see the kind of thing that we're talking about here on the cover there. Interesting, sometimes the drawing's a little bit crude, but this whole thing kind of reminded me a little bit of like Edward Gorey's The Ghastly Crumb Tinies. I have a little published version of that I really like. And I thought for Poetry Thursday, I'd read one of them, the one that I happen to like the most. But before I get to that one, just to kind of talk about what's in here and show you some of the illustrations. I mean, this is essentially a Dover publication that's a facsimile of the original. So there you have their shock-headed Peter. We've got the story of Cruel Frederick. This one I like. The dreadful story about Harriet and the matches. So here you can see Harriet. She wants to play with matches, and these cats keep telling her, shouldn't do that. And of course, she doesn't listen, and she catches on fire, and then she ends up a bunch of cinders at the end. This one's interesting. The story of the Inky Boys. This is actually essentially, I mean, in essence, is an anti-racist story. The language that's used in here, we would not consider proper today, certainly, but it's essentially about a bunch of boys who are making fun of somebody who is of African descent for his skin complexion. And then this giant guy with a big quill and inkwell decides to teach the boys a lesson, and he dips them all in ink and makes them as black as, black can be, basically, to teach them a lesson that they should not be judging people or making fun of them for the way that they look. So again, the language that's used in there we would not consider proper today, but essentially it's supposed to be teaching an anti-racist lesson. It's just a rabbit that gets a hold of the hunter's gun and goes after him. You've got here, avoid showing you one of them, but you've got the story of Augustus who would not have any soup. And the kid basically refuses to eat soup until he wastes away to nothing at the end there. And these are all fun. You got a kid, Fidgety Philip, who won't stop fidgeting at the table and knocks a bunch of stuff over. The story of Johnny Head in the Air. The kid just doesn't pay attention to where he's going, ends up in a river. And the story of Flying Robert. It was the wind takes his umbrella and the kid disappears. But the one that I'm going to read to you is the story of Little Suck-a-Thumb. So I'll show you these illustrations again real quick, but it's a fairly short one, but let's read this one together. One day, Mama said, "Conrad, dear, I must go out and leave you here. But mind now, Conrad, what I say. Don't suck your thumb while I'm away. The great tall tailor always comes to little boys that suck their thumbs, and ere they dream what he's about, he takes his great sharp scissors out and cuts their thumbs clean off, and then, they never grow again. Mama had scarcely turned her back. The thumb was in. Alack, alack." I'll show you the illustration in the next part after I read it. It says, "The door flew open. In he ran. The great long red-legged scissor man. Oh, children, see, the tailor's come and caught out little Suck-a-Thumb. Snip, snap, snip, the scissors go, and Conrad cries out, oh, oh, oh! Snip, snap, snip, they go so fast that both his thumbs are off at last. Mama comes home, there Conrad stands, and looks quite sad, and shows his hands. Ah, Mama said, I knew he'd come to naughty little Suck-a-Thumb. So, here's the red-legged scissor man getting a hold of Conrad. He caught him. And here we have Conrad standing there without his thumbs. So, you know, this is just a fun little thing. I love macabre humor. It's right up my alley here. Yeah, I think that Suck-a-Thumb is probably the best of the bunch. You know, a lot of them are just kind of whatever. If you've got a kind of twisted sense of humor like I do, and kind of like Heinrich Hoffmann did, who, by the way, everything I've read about the guy, he seems like he was actually a really decent, nice guy, but just had a little twisted sense of humor, which I appreciate. So that was the story of Suck-a-Thumb in STRUWWELPETER by Heinrich Hoffmann. Thank you, BookTube.